morning, everybody. Welcome to Soapbox Slam, where I get on my soapbox and I talk about the things that I see going on. Happy morning to everybody. I am on my soapbox today because I want to clarify a bunch of things as you guys become informed Americans, informed people, and you are able to better scrutinize what your elected representatives and your presidents and the political parties, Republican and Democrat, are telling you. Because when you are informed with especially some of the information I'm going to tell you and why I'm getting on my soapbox today is very misleading. And it's done deliberately to confuse society and to make them think different things. And I want you to hear the language that they use and pretend that if you were a news reporter or if you had them in a room, would you be able to corner them and question them and get them to acknowledge their lies? Okay, so this is what I'm going to talk about. I'm on my soapbox to talk about the difference between inflation rate and inflation. There's a difference between the two. And you hear even Joe Biden, his chief of, not chief of staff, but the lady who comes out on television and gives, weekly reports or whatever else. And you hear it on CNN and you hear it on MSNBC and you hear it on Fox News and everything else, right? What you hear is you'll hear them say inflation has gone down. Okay? And there are two things that we have to be clear about when people are talking about inflation and inflation going down. First of all, there's such a thing as inflation rate, and there's something called inflation. Two separate things. They measure different things and they mean different things. But what what media and the representatives do is they're using these words interchangeably to better define or better prop up their position or make themselves look better. Okay? So, when they say inflation has gone down, what they really are saying is the inflation rate has gone down. And that part is true. And what that means is inflation rate, okay, is a metric. It's a measurement. And it's a measurement used by the Consumer Price Index, right? So it's a measurement that is used to calculate the differences in the consumer price things, right? So it's tracking the change in the cost of living over time. Okay, so that's a huge part of the equation, over time, right? Inflation. So that's the inflation rate. A, you have to look at it over time. B, it's based on the Consumer Price Index of goods and services that are evaluated over a period of time, right? This is one of these algebraic equations where it's like X over N equals T, or X times T equals N, or, it's one of these kind of equations, right? I'm only a dumb nigger, so I can't really specifically identify the exact equation that they use to measure the inflation rate. But this dumb nigger is smart enough to read and understand some basic words and understand those meanings. And so inflation rate is one thing, inflation is another thing. And the inflation rate is a metric statistical measurement. So automatically algebra, we're looking for an algebraic equation or formula to identify what what is the measurement or what is the metric. That's what we mean by metric. And so when you have an algebraic equation or formula, you have 3 or 4 different variables to calculate it. And most important variable that we need to talk about, or you need to consider, is the variable over time. Over time. So the cost of living over time. That's a very subjective measurement to use, time. So that is your inflation rate. Inflation is the exact cost of goods. It's like a dollar for dollar kind of exchange. The exact rise in the cost of a good. So, and a good or service. So, the cost of meat goes up. The cost of eggs go up. That's inflation. The cost of eggs were $7 for a case of 68, and now they're $13 for a case of 68, and that changed in a matter of a week, right? The cost of gasoline changed in a matter of a week from over 50 to 60, 75 cents, right? So that's direct inflation. A lot of the representatives have said, oh, inflation has not risen, it's gone down. They're talking about the inflation rate, a measurement used over time. Time is the biggest, it's the cost of living over time. And it accelerated for several reasons, okay? This is where, when you get into politics and political parties, this is where one political party, to me, fails a lot more than another, although both have failed tremendously. The cost of living needs to go up. So they mandated a minimum wage. But anytime you mandate a minimum wage, it automatically, no matter what, always, because the corporations always want to, at a bare minimum, make the same amount of money that they made the year before. So if they have to pay wages more, then they're automatically gonna raise the price of goods immediately. So the price of goods raised, gasoline rised, everything rised, and because every sector, every industry, everything from what you pay in insurance, what you pay for your rent, what you pay in your mortgage, what you pay in interest, what you pay for food and groceries, what you pay for to remodel your house, what you pay for wood, everything. When all of that goes up, right? It's a direct inflation, but it also directly affects the inflation rate, which is measured by the cost of living over time. That's a part of the equation. So I keep stressing the difference, because inflation is different from inflation rate, because inflation rate is a measurement, an algebraic equation that is measured, that measures a cost of living over time, not just the price of the goods and services that have gone up, right? So it's a measurement. Inflation is just a price of a good that went up. You could have inflation in the meat market and not have inflation in, let's say, the automobile industry. You know, the price of automobiles doesn't go up, but for some reason, the cost of meat went up. Maybe there was mad cow disease, maybe there was avian flu, maybe there was swine flu, or something like that. So therefore, those prices of meat went up, but in every other sector, the price didn't go up. They stayed the same, or prices went down, right? So you would say that there's inflation on the meat market, but there's not a inflation rate change. There isn't an increased inflation rate. So that's how I'm trying to distinguish the two. I'm telling you this information. I'm on my soapbox to give you this information, because do not be fooled and tricked when media and political representatives try to convince you that inflation has gone down. Inflation has not gone down. The only thing that they're referring to is the inflation rate, and the inflation rate, the cost of living now, because they raised the price of insurances, they raised the price of everything across the board. all because we increased the minimum wage, and they blamed it on the war and the minimum wage and the pandemic and everything else. But the bottom line is, on every measure in a human being, in an American citizen's life, on every measure, the price of everything across the board drastically increased. So we have to pay more money to all of these other industries, and it increased everywhere across the board, and it went up so high, fuel, whatever, everything went up. So that is the inflation rate. And when they say inflation has gone down, they just mean that the cost of living over time has not changed. Has not changed. The rate hasn't gotten higher, it hasn't gotten lower. It's just stayed stagnant. So anytime something hasn't increased, they say it has not changed, or it has not increased. Well, that's technically true, but it does not mean that the cost of goods and services, inflation itself, has gone down, or the price of things have gone down. Quite the opposite. The cost of things have not gone down at all. Meat is still the same price. All of our groceries are still the same price. That price is not going down. It never will go down. That is the new cost. Saltine crackers, which used to cost $1.50, are always going to cost $3.50 from here on out. That's just the new thing now. It's always going to be that. That price will not go down. The price of meat will not go down. It's always going to be $25 for 2 basic New York strip steaks. The price has not gone down. It will not gone down. Inflation will still be high. The price of those goods are still going to get higher. In fact, I just read in the newspaper that even though there are more cows, even though that there is more meat produced, meaning that they make smaller cuts, and they reduce okay, so what am I trying to say in this statement? Even though there are less cows, there is still more meat, but the price of meat is going to increase. Make that make sense to me, right? Make that make sense for you. I can't make that make sense for you. I'm sorry, but that is what it reported, and I know I got this correct. I had to be very, very clear about how I stated that, because this is what I read, and it was about the meat industry and what's going to happen in the meat industry over the next couple of years. It was an article about the meat industry. So inflation will still continue. The inflation rate may not continue. We may be done with the extreme jump in prices of things. It all depends on what they blame as the war and all this other stuff that's out there, right? So the inflation rate may not dramatically change, but that does not mean inflation and the cost of our goods and services are not going to continue to go up. They are. In each sector, right now it's going to be the food sector again. And then it was the gasoline sector. So right now, all the different industries, food, gas, electricity, energy, textiles, all that other stuff. What's going to happen now in each one of these independent industries, real estate, what's going to happen in each one of these industries independently, those will independently rise over a period of time. So we're still going to have inflation. We're just not going to have an insane inflation rate where every industry jacks the price up of everything so high on all consumer price indexes. Everything goes up so high on everything that that our cost of living is so dramatically changed. That's what an inflation rate is going to represent. When you have different industries that have fluctuating prices of goods, it compensates the differences where we may pay more in gas, but we're not paying as much in food. Or we may pay more in food, but we don't pay as much in gas anymore. And that's inflation. It directly relates to each individual industry and the price of goods in its individual industry, where the inflation rate, again, is referencing across every industry that exists that we pay money for, all the prices went up, and over a period of time, our cost of living has increased. That's an inflation rate. So don't be fooled when the politicians and your local representatives and the media say, oh, inflation has gone down. Stop them immediately and pinpoint a real answer when they try to tell you that, because that's an inaccurate, misleading statement. And you have to be diligent and listening to what they say and knowing what it is they're really trying to say. And that's what I'm on my soapbox to give you a little tip about. When they talk about inflation, you have to be clear, are they referring to the inflation rate or are they talking about inflation period? Because I'm here to tell you right now, inflation on goods has not gone down, period, has not gone down. I buy stuff, I buy groceries, I buy gasoline, I go to work every day. The price of goods have not gone down. In fact, they're still going up. It's just the entire industry hasn't raised the prices everywhere across the board. So over time, the cost of living hasn't gone up as it has from the time of the pandemic until now. And that is a misleading statement that you should not fall victim to. That's what I'm on my soapbox about. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy your day today. Have a good day.